Today is October the 23rd, 2015. My name is Tanya Fincham, along with Alex Bishop, and we're with Oklahoma State University. Today we're in Shawnee, Oklahoma, to speak with Lovetta. Did I pronounce that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Lovetta Carroll, and this is part of our Oklahoma 100-Year Life project. So thank you for having us today.
You're welcome.
Let's start with having you tell us when and where you were born. Your birthday.
It's Cold Creek,
I was Cold Creek,
Arkansas.
Arkansas. And my birthday is October the 31st.
Halloween.
Uh-huh.
And what year?
1913.
Right.
So you got a birthday next week.
Yes, ma'am. I've
102.
been having birthdays. Different people remember for. In fact, I don't guess I have all my cards. I think I took my cards down. There may
Well,
be
you haven't
two.
got as many yet, the people.
No, I haven't. I'll get a pass.
Your birthday's on Halloween.
Uh-huh.
How'd you celebrate?
Yeah.
How'd you celebrate your birthday growing up on Halloween? Did you get candy?
Yeah, it's I don't make a big deal of it anymore, but as a kid I really liked it. And my father worked in the oil field, and we lived, in Osage County. You know where that is? Way up north. And that was the richest county in the state. And we had wonderful schools. We didn't have to buy our books or anything. They furnished all of it. The county did. And that's my father. The first thing they would ask me at school when I got older, did you live in the country or in the city? And I said, neither one. And I said that at a country, okay, a lot of times I had to go to a temporary school if my father was getting transferred. So this particular time, it was time for school to start, and wasn't sure where we were going to be living. So I went to a little country school, I think for about a month. Just, short time. They didn't want me to go. Maybe it was a month and a half, come think about it, so many weeks. And the teacher said, this was the first day, did you grow up, now here you are, 12 years old or something such. Now where did you grow up, in the city or the country? And I said neither one, and I was asked to leave the room and go in the office. They must have had somebody that when you got punished, that's where you went to. Then they later would have a conference with you. So I got very tearful because I had not done anything wrong. I just said neither one. And boy, my mom, she didn't quit because she got that teacher moved out. That teacher lost her job in the local, in the country, because she just thought I was being smarty with her. And that really impressed me. I thought, well, if I'll just be truthful, well, I won't get punished. And that really impressed me all my life. I thought, well, there is justice,
Well,
but
where would you have said you lived if it wasn't the town or the country? What would have been your answer?
the oil field. We lived in a company camp, and my father worked for this oil company, and there wasn't a grocery store or anything there. They had their housing, And he had a very, very impressive job, and everything was furnished, but so it wasn't the city, see, and it wasn't the country.
It wasn't any agriculture or anything, you know, it was just little houses, all built just for that.
Well, where would your mother get groceries? In that
Well,
day?
she went, they went into, I can't remember, it's been too long since the name of the towns. But we had two automobiles. My father had one, my mother had one. And he was buying a new car every 2 years. They started out with their cars that were older, and then every who had that car, you know. So they just, sometimes he'd take my mother's car after she had driven.
There was one town within 5 miles of that camp.
I can't remember. It was like
Scheidler.
it was like
Scheidler.
Webb City. The towns that close by was Webb City, Scheidler, Grenoble. That was the name of the towns. There wouldn't be a Webb City now, is there?
Yeah, it's there.
Is there?
Yeah, there's a few houses.
That's so long ago. But see, and we had, guess what? My English teacher, Mrs. Cheney, I'll never will forget her name. She quit her job. She was a professor at A&M. What was A&M then? And she was not married. She resigned, put in her resignation, and moved to Scheidler. Scheidler had some houses that were for rent, or, you know, some housing. I don't know how it was. I think it was something that you could live in a little house and then go out to your door and over to the kitchen and eat. And I mean, see, like for single people that didn't want to cook or anything. And there's a lot of businesses up there in Osage County. This was Scheidler. We closest to Webb City was where I went to school. And name was Webb City, and when I first went to school, they had one grocery store, and they had 2 or 3 businesses, but the name was Webb City. And I thought, boy, if this is a city, you know, I was just a little kid, and I thought, this is a city, you know. I was really impressed to find out later that was not a city. That was in its name, and I thought it was kind of funny. But we had, the teachers were even paid a little bonus, and this Mrs. Cheney, she wasn't married, and so she made real good friends with me. She quit her job at the university, what was A&M back in those days, instead of, I don't know what it goes by now, but it was A&M College back then. And she quit her teaching job there and came up to Webb City and lived in this housing where he did all the cooking and everything for her. But that's how impressed she was, and she was a lovely teacher. But she wasn't married, so she just thought, well, why not? You know, she found out about this place where I went to school.
Well, the salary was more.
But, huh?
The salary was more
Oh, yeah.
up there
The salary was
than
more in
Osage
Osage
County than
County
it
than it was at the
in college.
university. But they just rolling in money, and if they even had that in the newspaper, that was the richest county, Osage was,
A lot of oil.
in Oklahoma.
A lot of oil. Did you go through the 12th grade there?
No, let me see, I didn't, because my father got a better and a better job, and got transferred. And I graduated with
You
it.
graduated, then
Yeah,
they closed
I
that
used to
school
have my
shortly after that,
certificate at
and
someplace, but I don't have
everything's at Scheidler now. So when they have a reunion, they include Webb City and Scheidler and a couple other little places.
it. It's not not that big a deal anymore with school, because you've got school too.
What year did you graduate? Do you remember? Probably
I'm-
32, 33,
I'm
something.
32.
32.
1932.
Do you remember how many were in your class?
No, I really don't.
A small number?
No, we had a big class.
A big class.
See, Osage County had so much money that it was just run over with employees wanting jobs.
Well, there was a lot of oil field families and
There was
stuff, so there's quite a few
There was
kids.
Phillips and Carter, and there was about 3 or 4 oil companies that headquartered there.
And did you go to school with some Native American Indian children?
They talked about Indian children all the time, you know.
I think they were going to different school. I think they were going to their own
I
school.
was gonna tell
Yeah.
you, they had, like, their private schools. Evidently, they were paid differently for their teachers and stuff, I don't know.
Well, how many brothers and sisters did you have?
Let me see, I had 2 brothers and 2 sisters. No,
3.
more than that.
3 sisters.
Sheila, Pauline, Margaret, yeah, 3 sisters and 2 brothers.
And
And me made 6.
and where were you in the order? Were you the oldest, the youngest, in the middle, or what?
I was the eldest.
You were the oldest.
Uh-huh.
Were you bossy?
I
Not
don't
too
think
much.
so. My mother wouldn't have allowed it.
Well, can you describe the house that you grew up in there in the oil field?
Oh, it was, gosh, it was modern one of the best outfitted houses. It was like city houses. We had, it was all modern. Our house had 2 bathrooms. If you had a big family where you had, and the bathroom was here, and there's a bedroom here and a bedroom here. And we had 2 things like that. Ours was company housing. My father had a good job, and it was company housing. That was part of his pay, I guess. I don't know. But we had modern houses when very few people did. See, that's a long time back when I was first in school.
Well, did your mother work?
Oh, no, no.
Did she sew?
Yes, ma'am.
Make
Made all our clothes.
Make your clothes.
Uh-huh. I didn't have a store-bought dress until I was in high school. And I didn't have roommates then, but I had 1 or 2. And, no, my mother did all our sewing. We had different day, we thought we needed a different dress every day, of course. So, we had lots of clothes.
Did she make your brothers too?
No, no. Uh-huh.
Not the shirts or?
No, she wouldn't make all the cups and stuff. She wouldn't make. But, well, she had 4 girls, you know. And that was enough sewing.
Sure. Did she quilt?
When she, very little time, so she did very much.
I'd have to go get a pill for her.
I can't think of. But she liked to handle. She embroidered. That's something, see, I didn't do any of those things. But she quilted, and women would get together and laugh and tell little dirty jokes and stuff, that was their outing, getting away from their children. But we did in these company camps, like everybody's house was like, and they were really nice houses. We had 2 bathrooms, and there was a bedroom on each side, so we had so many kids, so we had one of those big houses.
Nurse George.
I gotta see what this is.
checking me out there.
Yeah, what is this?
That's your pilf. That's your,
My bill.
yeah.
I've forgotten even what they're for now. So I guess.
Supposed to be for your behavior. Don't work, but
What do I take that for? I really don't know.
blood, it's a mild blood pressure.
I,
You probably don't take many, do you?
No, that's-
Just one little
That's
capsule.
pretty mild, but
And that hadn't been too long ago.
Well, when you finished high school, what did you do?
What did I do? We lived in Osage where I graduated. Well, see, I was the oldest of 6 kids, so I did not leave home. My mother by the way, my mother, that's the reason I had to raise the kids. She came down with a malignancy in her ear, which is very rare. But see, now this sounds a little silly, but before you had to have driver's license, I drove the car. My dad bought my mother a new car every 2 years for a long time there. And he'd take the 2-year-old car and buy her a new one, see. And she would drive us to school, and I can't remember how old I was when I started driving, but I didn't drive to school. But we didn't ride on the school bus either. And if the school bus had gone past the house, my mother wouldn't have let us kids ride. But since we lived in company camp, well, the school bus didn't come by anyway and stuff. So it was oil field life total back in Osage County when it was really high. Oil field life was totally different from city or country either.
Well, what would you kids do for fun in the oil camp?
Well, they had all kinds of, they had lots of money, so they had their own, bicycles and stuff. We, just girls, see, I had to take care of kids. That's the reason I don't have any kids. I had to take care of children because my mother came down with this infected ears, and I couldn't find, and I drove her. Now I'm only, I don't know, I was 14.
I think
14,
you started when you was 12, I think you
I
started.
know, yeah, I started driving her every place because she came down with cancer of the
Inner ear.
inner ear.
Mm.
And that was just almost unheard of, and you couldn't get it treated, couldn't get anything done for in Oklahoma. And I took her into Kansas and in Arkansas City. And see, we lived in Osage County and went to school at Webb City. And here I am, a little old kid, and I had to practically had to stand up to pedal that thing because I really, how old was I before I weighed 100? I was way up there before I ever weighed 100. I was really skinny and little. And I practically had to stand up.
Wasn't too long before I met you. I think you were probably 20, 25 or 30 before you weighed 100.
Don't have any trouble now. At 100.
Well, how did you meet George?
Oh, that's a good question.
I found her.
Oh, you found her.
Okay, now, I never told anybody else this. This is kind of naughty, isn't it?
No.
But, George, I guess I think he just mostly felt.
She was
sorry.
selling beer, is what.
So,
I was still in the Marine Corps. It was just shortly after
see, and
World War II. It ended.
Oklahoma wasn't like
And I was still,
Serbia.
I liked about 2 months or so
And he got
finishing my 4-year term. And
and
so
they,
I was just out. My mother had moved to Stillwater, and I just was looking around, finding my way around, learning about everything, and I found
was
about.
your mother and father divorced or did he die?
No, they divorced,
I thought they were.
but
I couldn't remember what you.
so I'd heard about this place that it was attached to the restaurant. I think they closed that. What they call it, the Ancestor.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There now. Well, it's behind that. There used to be a little house, and they had these laws that you couldn't have a beer in a restaurant unless you had a meal first. So you had to have a meal first. But they had all the beer over in that little house, and then they also would sell beer over there. You could eat over there if you wanted to.
And I was the beer. I was
She
one
was
that worked there.
she was opening the beer.
I wasn't called a waitress or anything. I was the one that.
Well, you was hostess. You was really hostess.
And I managed the whole
But,
thing for the restaurant. It was a Cliff's restaurant. And it was a big, it was a big time restaurant. And so that's where I met. And George wasn't right behind the ears yet, but he was a beer drinker. I never drank a beer in my life, so.
So that would have been in the 40s? 40,
That would have, yeah. That
45,
would have been,
46,
that
somewhere
would have
around
been 40,
And
48.
and then here, when I got up at work, imagine, here I am. I weigh all of 80 some odd pounds.
Oh, you were a little over that.
Huh?
At that time, you were probably slightly over 100.
Well, yeah.
But you
well,
wasn't big-
anyway,
you wasn't big.
I was over.
You wasn't
100.
big enough to fight.
But
molesters,
I had to walk from about 2 miles, and I closed. Time I closed, and got the money put away, and took care of all this because this was my responsibility for the people that owned the restaurant. And it'd be real late at night, and I had to walk 2 miles home after dark. And of course he was just really real young, but he was a beer drinker. So, and you couldn't. What was, you couldn't drink beer unless you had food?
Yeah, well, you had to order a meal to have it in the cafe, but over there, you could.
So I was
You could
over at
get
the
a
beer
beer
place,
over
and
there.
he'd get his food and bring it over there. Anyway, and eat, and so, and he just felt sorry for me and said by that time I had married, hadn't I? Was I married a short time? I was married just a real short time. Terrible person. Anyway, he saw me and got to watching, and he felt sorry for me. I didn't realize that. I was so independent and feisty, I probably would have said, go to heck, I don't want anything to do with you. I was so, I was so sure of myself, and I was not a nice person.
Oh, I think you were. I beg to differ on that.
Well, I was naughty. I didn't behave nicely. I wasn't a person that my mother, because I didn't have, my mother had died, and My mother died when she was 51. And she had 6 kids, so but anyway, that's where, and George got so, he would walk me home. He found out I was walking home by myself. Can you imagine, how far did you say it was?
About 2 miles.
Can you imagine at midnight? And I weighed I think I still weighed around 80 pounds. I didn't ever weigh into 100 until.
Well, what had taken you from Osage County to Stillwater?
Oh,
Well, she had got married. She had married for a short time.
oh
but they
yeah, I
wasn't,
forgot about that.
they wasn't living together at the time, and but
Yeah, that was the reason I was there. I just had forgotten.
anyway, we become best friends. Is what we really. And then I had to go back and finish my 2 months.
So I
4
said,
years
George did
of
a good
Marines,
with my
and then
lifestyle, and you know, and
then I helped put her in the. I had a little bit of money, so I helped put her in the nursery.
oh, in a daycare, Stillwater. Okay, I was a friend of the president of the college, and
No, it was it was the head of that department, sweetie.
huh?
It was the head of that the department.
Head of the department,
Yeah.
and family relations. You know,
Nearly all your customers was OSU families.
they could get a degree, but they didn't have anything for the children. And so then I started a day care for children. Introduced daycare for children. And it, when Stillwater was A&M. That was way back.
Practically all her customers was
A lot of those kids are
OSU families.
parents now, of course.
Back in the 50s?
Well,
Back in
yeah, this would have been in the 50s by the time she put the nursery in. Yeah.
Where was the nursery located?
She started. It was both times it was on Lowry Street, but there was an old house that she started in, and then as soon as
You don't think I kept you when you was little, do you? There was a lot of
then
stuff.
later on it was farther west on Lowry Street after, but both their locations.
But since
One was
I-
just sort of a temporary deal, and she had this one child that was a baby, and we practically helped raise her. We got real thick with her, but she died when she was like 58 or something like that, and
So when did you two get married?
54.
54.
Yeah. Yeah, we become best friends, and I don't know what happened, but we fell in love. You know what? It's
happens.
It's
That
unpredictable.
Well, but you know, here I was. My mother had died, and there were 6 kids in the family, and of course there's 5 besides me, and I'd taken care of kids, and my father had a good job, drove a new car all the time, and you know, we had, when we girls, I had to help sew the clothes. There was 4 girls and 2 boys, and 4 girls, counting myself. And
How old were you when she passed away?
I think,
Well, let's see. She'd have probably been, like 25 or something like that.
but I had to see the youngest.
I didn't meet her. But she had passed away about 2 years before I.
For you?
So that I met her
Yeah,
November
I
of,
wonder how old
48. So
JC was whenever.
it'd probably been about 46 when she died.
And my mother,
You and your mother died.
yeah. But I said it was just like heaven, you know, to have George come along and just kind of, he just kind of took care of things in the background. I mean, you know, if he saw that, because I could never make very much salary. I've forgotten what the hourly salary was, but it wasn't anything very much. And
I was surveying for Union Oil Company at the, and
so he had,
so I ended up going to Nevada for 3 weeks, I think, and
but
that's
you know,
when I decided that I was in love. I knew there's something wrong with me, but I didn't diagnose it. That's when I diagnosed it.
but this is
So I proposed.
so strange. I was just telling him today, you know, I had been mistreated. And besides having to take care of all these kids, and I had a father that was not a nice person, and I was mistreated. He was a good-looking guy, had a good job, always drove new cars, but he was not a nice man. And I had to fight my way. And here comes George along and gets me out of all that mess. Well, and I was telling him here one day, and you know, he never did give me a good cussing or no, act like he was angry with me. He's always
Well, I didn't know you were supposed to.
he's always tried to make me a better person, you know, help me to be a better person. But I turned real quick. I got in big time with the president of the university, his family, and I made good friends, and I came out of it. But if George hadn't been there to back me up, I never could have, because here I had these kids.
Well, you done a lot of work with the church. She got real involved in churches and stuff. I think she started three preschool at 3 different churches.
In Stillwater?
One in Stillwater, and the Highland Park Methodist Church. She started preschool there, and then
I introduced
and the Mother's
preschool
Day out, and then
for children. They were
2
going
down
to,
here.
They were, you know, just leaving with a babysitter and stuff. And I said, that's a waste of that child's life. That child could be learning, you know, and doing, and be better, and be more prepared for college and stuff. And so, boy, it went like wildfire. I had to put a limit, you know, and then daycare became a thing. There's a lot of them.
Well, had you taken classes to learn how to do that?
No,
Well,
but
she
I had 5. I had 5 kids.
Well, you audited a lot of classes
Oh yeah.
out there. You never had a chance to go, but
Did you audit them through OSU, through the
Yeah,
FRCD?
yeah.
Did I what?
You audited courses through the FRCD at the time, A&M?
I don't remember how.
I didn't know where she was going to class, which one, but it's probably connected with the child child development or.
No.
Yeah, I worked at a business. I kind of came out of it, you know. I got out away from home. I mean, away from my dad, and I got out on my own. And I would just audit classes, you know. I would just go in so I could get some ideas about children different ages. And then I had a lady teacher from what was A&M back in those days. and her name was Chaney, Chaney, and she was single, and she seemed to have plenty of money without teaching, but she came to Webb City with me, and she kind of got me started, in education, how to set up a daycare for children and all. And boy, these women that wanted to go to work and was trying to find a place to leave their kids, and my gosh, and somebody said, they first started me out and said, well, don't ever try to take care of over 10. So I tried that, and it was a snap, no problem, because I'd grown up, with 5 other kids, and besides doing all the housework and cooking and everything, and because my mother was ill. And so I just really went for it, and first thing I knew, there's other people, women, that started child care, and it was a way of, they could make money and stay at home, and a lot of them didn't have any education they knew how to take care of kids, but that was about all. So I just, like I say, and George came along, and I was just telling him, I think today, in all that clutter and everything, I never remember him ever just getting angry and, and just cursing and stuff, because I've been around men and seen women abused a lot. And George has always stuck up his ears. And he knows, I think, that he's always been so sweet and all that. But I couldn't understand how I was so lucky, so I finally just decided, if no other way, well, God made it possible. I didn't know. What are you going to say? What are you going to, why did it happen that way? And here, George, I'm walking home by myself after midnight when I was working, waiting tables, and then I had to clean up and everything, and because I was in charge of all the waitresses and stuff at this one restaurant. And by the time I had everything cleaned up and the money put in the safe and everything, well, I had to walk home 2 miles by myself. Maybe it'd be midnight. Isn't that awful?
How did he pop the question? Do you remember? One of you remember how you asked?
I did. She thought I had too much beer.
She didn't take you serious, huh?
No. Yeah, yeah, of course, we'd just been,
He was a real
like I
beer
say,
drinker, I'll
best
tell
friends,
you.
and then I went out to Nevada,
Never
and
bothers him anymore.
I missed her so much, and I just decided that we need to get married. And she said, "Are you sober?"
That's the first thing he asked me on the phone.
I asked you on the phone.
Huh?
I asked you on the phone.
I know it. I started saying, he asked me. I don't know, but we were just visiting, and he said something about it. He said, well, I think I need to start taking care of you. And I was laughing about that today. Yeah.
Over 60 years.
Yeah, isn't that nice?
That's nice. What's been the secret for that?
Well, we,
A lot of patience.
now you don't have too hard a time.
Why? I didn't.
No, we've had a real great life. We've traveled, and by the way, he's been a game hunter for years, a big time. And he said one year, he said, think of something you always wanted and never had. he said, what would you like to have for your birthday? And I said, golly, I can't think of anything right off. And I had ring. I have rings. I don't wear them a whole lot anymore. I mean, they're in the safe.
Well, her fingers shrunk.
Right.
Sure, sure.
And and they were big diamonds, so I do wear them. I just don't wear them here all the time. Anyway, George said, well, I don't know, but he said, I think we should do this, do that. Anyway, so I said, well, I'd like to learn to shoot a gun. And I said, so he said, well, we can arrange that. And I don't know, how did we start off? Just put up targets?
Oh, you just went with me on an elk hunt, and you got a deer license. And
Anyway,
well, I was on horseback.
so
I dumped her off in a
built
spot
a
I
new
thought was
room.
good.
Onto this house we built when we moved here. We lived in Stillwater for a long time. And then when we moved here, he built a room on down lower than this little floor. And I said, well, it seemed to me like I should be able to have something in this room. It's so beautiful. It's a beautiful room. Whenever he first built it on, had it built on. So he said, well, what do you think? And I was thinking about some handwork, or something, but I thought I should have something on the wall. And he said, well, the only way you can have a mount, an animal mount in this room, and he thought that's what I meant, is to shoot something bigger than I have. And I thought, you awful thing, you've been hunting for years, and I have to go out and kill something bigger than you ever have. And so, boy, that was quite a challenge. And so I finally did it. And he was down at the edge of the woods.
I was on horseback. I left you in what I thought was a good spot, and then I was probably a mile away on horseback, and I heard a shot, and so I turned around and went back. And
we spent big money for this hunting trip.
But before that, why she said, I don't want you babying me. She not only told me, she told
don't tell me when to pull the trigger.
several people that was camped around close. Said, nobody be babying me around. I'm a hunter just like everybody else, and I don't want to hear all this crap. So
boy, I about wish I hadn't said that.
she.
You're not going to tell them what I did.
Yeah, well, anyway, she had to dress the deer, and
Yeah.
she put the wrong end uphill.
I knew he was going to tell us on me.
When she opened up the chest cavity and the stomach, why
And they knocked me just
the
flat
insides
as a
jumped out
ball.
and started out on top of her
The
head.
insides and blood all over me, my hair. And we were away from home. I didn't have any other clothes. Can you imagine what a mess I was? I was up on this hill, and he was way down
We
there
was camped right by a creek, so we
at the timber line.
easy to sterilize her.
And I know he was just dying laughing. I couldn't see. But I had blood all on my hair and on me, and no clean clothes. But I shot one bigger than his anyway. And I did get it in his trophy room. So we had a lot of fun out of that.
But you were gonna dress it yourself without.
Yeah, and she didn't want me helping. She said, if I'm going to be a hunter, I'm gonna decide when to shoot.
Don't
and
tell me when to pull the trigger.
I'm gonna dress it myself. And
I was
I'm
getting
gonna
real nasty.
do all this, and I said, well, that's fine, that's great. And
But did you know how to dress it?
No, she.
Evidently not.
Oh, I knew how to cut it open.
Well, yeah, she knew how to cut.
But I stood down below him. I mean, I stood on the, you know, where the animal was higher than me. And, you know, for that, and when you split it wide open, well, you know what happened.
I'd have been throwing up.
She,
I
we-
was unhappy.
we'd been on another hunt earlier, and it hadn't worked out too good. But she was planning. I'd just let her do all the planning, you know, she wanted to do. And so she said that we was going to hunt javelina hogs, which is a type of hog, you know, that they're not a true hog, but anyway, they're in that family. And so she said, I was trying to get one to mount, and she said, well, I said, let's use my gun, you use my gun, and then that way you get one you want to mount, and then that way we'll have my gun there, and then I can kill one to eat. And so we got separated by a few yards, but it was real thick brush, and so these hogs run after her because she run. I mean, I was standing
You're
still,
mean, too.
and she run, and there was a fence there, and she went up on that corner post, and
I'm
she
standing up on a
climbed up
corner
on the corner
post, can you
post.
imagine?
and
I
I could
wasn't-
see her,
I wasn't
but
big as I am now.
I could see her, but I couldn't see
I
the
was-
hogs.
I was probably 50
And she was
pounds
pointing
lighter
straight
than I
down
am.
like that, and she said, they're right here, right
I
here.
kept saying, right here.
So
Here I am
Anyway,
up
there
on
was
that post.
there was a pig squealing, and they evidently thought that she had the pig, you know. And anyway, they was after her, and so about that time I spotted one I wanted, and I shot it, and so they all run then. But she said, well, you, like it was my idea. She said, here you put me out there, and all I had was a camera, I didn't have my gun.
I listen to what he said.
I said, well, the gun wouldn't have done you any good. I said, you had a camera, and I'll bet you didn't even get a picture. And so
Wasn't that smart, Alex?
that irritated her a little. I don't know you had any dealings with mad women or not, but
We've had a good life. But I certainly needed it. I'd been through an awful lot and had to help raise all those kids. And my mother had that cancer, and so I told Gerald, I said, when are you going to get married? I said, no, I don't want a family. I've raised a family, and I'm sick and tired of it.
Well, how did you become interested in working with kids? Even though you didn't want a family, you
I don't know. It was just
I
she just was
actually-
gravitated, you know, toward kids and all the neighborhood kids, and you know, there was always kids around, and she just
I worked out,
was good with them. I mean, you
Yeah.
know,
and
she could
believed
she
that-
could say anything she wanted to the kid to try to encourage him to be better, and they'd never get mad at her. And I had to be careful, you know, because it hurt their feelings. You say something and it hurt their feelings.
Well, see, and
But never did her. She could just say anything
I
she wanted to.
decided
They'd just go
to
along with it.
explain to children what you were going to do. You know, like if you was going to go, as an example, I'd say, now today we're going to take a walk. And I would tell them how I expected them to do. And like, okay, first of all, like, I never did want to, you know, threaten them or anything like that. I wanted to try and treat them nice and see if it would have any effect. So they kept telling me, the department, with the teachers. Now, Miss Carroll, you need to, well, Miss Rogers was in my maiden name. And they'd say, now, you don't want to, to ever let a child bluff you, da-de-da, da-de-da. And I said, well, now, I'm not going to ever talk bad to a child. I don't believe in that. And I'd had good luck with my siblings, and teaching and stuff. And so I would do things like, okay, put, rows of seats, and at the head of each seat, each row, well, this was just an example, I would put a candle. Then I'd light everybody's candle. And then the first one that started tapping on their desk or doing something to disturb, well, that row would get their candle burned out. Well, the ones whose candle burned down first got to have a party, see? So, the one that didn't do
They
that.
got to plan the party.
Yeah. And anyway, so it was really kind of funny, that everybody would get threatening each other. Don't you do that. She'll blow our candle out. And so I used things like that instead of, doing something to them, because I would feel like that they didn't need to feel guilty because it wasn't, but they felt guilty because if they talked or they did something.
A little peer pressure.
I think she was disgusted with raising her siblings, but she still missed it really. And I think, she had such good luck with the neighborhood kids and everything that it just kind of grew into her
Well, and I just
deciding to do it as a business.
I just learned I could take 15 kids on a nature walk and I wouldn't have any trouble at all.
Just you by yourself?
But we'd sit down in a circle and we would talk, and I'd say, well, how do you do this, or how do you do that, and what do you do, and how do you act, and I'd take off. And right across from the church was a big strip where you could go walking in the grass and weeds and stuff. And a lot of times we would walk there, we do. But I never did have any trouble. I could take 15 kids and keep them all under control. But what we do, instead of doing something to them, I would blow out their candle, and the one whose candle burned down first was one that got to have the party. Would be the winner, if they wanted to be a winner. Or
They had to choose the menu and whatever we was going to do for activity. They got to run the show.
The last one to have it blown out,
Yeah.
the last one.
And
Well, the one that their candle burned down first. Of course,
Oh, burned down
they
all
got
the way
it.
to
If they got it blown out, why, they wasn't going to burn down very fast.
And I've learned other ways, to really control their actions without ever having to scold them or anything.
Well, did you learn those type of things from auditing those classes? No, you just knew, okay.
I saw it and saw it and saw it. I've never seen anybody else do it. I just, it was my way of not bad-mouthing the child. And,
Well, did it always work?
Huh?
Did it?
Well, how did you, in terms of the A&M, you said that they were strong in family relations. What did you do to convince them they needed child development?
Oh, I think some of those parents, it worked for OSU. I think they traded stories back and forth together and stuff, and they kind of encouraged her to audit those classes and stuff. She'd
Yeah,
pick up a
I
lot
had
of
a lot of
stuff in there,
friends
but
with
not especially
in
how to control
education
behavior.
at the university. I had several real good. Well, I think how I first knew them, I was hostess at a big restaurant, and at night when they would have a party or something, and a lot of times they would sit around and talk to me about children, and I got a lot of experience. You know, when you're the oldest of 6, and your mother had cancer, and she didn't take care of them.
But you were the reason that Oklahoma A&M started their early childhood education program?
Yeah. It was,
That's impressive.
yeah, well, they were going to do, what were they going to teach, and they didn't have anything for the children.
Oh, I don't know. It started something new.
Probably family relations or
Family
yeah,
relations,
family relations,
but they didn't
Had a degree, I think.
didn't have anything on child development, so they was trading.
And I said, well, I don't think that's a very good idea without having something for children. And I never did believe in spanking children or hitting them, you know. Anyway, I think spanking is hitting. I never did believe in that.
So when you intervened, they had a degree in family relations, but they didn't have a degree in child
Well, she
development.
just suggested that to that teacher, you know, that one of the teachers that of course she was in on some of the planning, that because they just wasn't including that, like it was just a family didn't include its children, you know, and so.
And there's so many ways
You're gonna
to
naturally
control children.
end up with children.
If you stop and think, actually, you can control a child, and he will get the idea that you're being nice to him. You know what I mean? But he's actually being controlled if you put it across correctly. You know,
So you
make a story out of it.
So did they have you on like an advisory board or
no
anything like that?
It wasn't like that. I think they was just trade. You know that
Trade
she
stories.
had so many parents that were
I didn't have the money
connected
to
with
go to
OSU and
college.
stuff
Faculty.
that
I
they
didn't have the income.
You just had practical knowledge to
they
share
just
with
did a
them.
lot of talking about kids. Even
But
after they went home, while they'd be telephone calls and stuff. Of course, that was a whole conversation with kids.
And George financed a lot of stuff, even before we were married.
You'd have to feed them lunch, breakfast and lunch probably.
Yeah, in the nursery, well, it include lunch, you know. And a lot of times, like kids would end up, she'd find out the kids didn't have any breakfast, and so
Yeah,
it'd end up being breakfast too. But
What would you feed them?
What'd you say?
Well, what did you feed those kids?
I don't remember. I know I stayed away from real sweet stuff because that gets to be such a.
she probably picked up some of the auditing, and she probably picked up some ideas about about feeding kids and stuff. But one thing she learned not to feed them is one time I made donuts, and I took powdered sugar and put it in a sack and shook, and the powder, she got mixed up and she used my sack that had powdered sugar in it, and instead of flour, and she put powdered sugar on some chicken and cooked it for the kids, and they wouldn't eat it. And she couldn't, of course she didn't taste it for a long time. I ended up tasting it, so I said, the little rat said, the unappreciative little so-and-sos, they won't eat my cooking. I can
made
smell
good
it,
money
you
in
know.
childcare. But
But you had to plan nutrition too for them if you were doing meals.
well, a lot of those children never ate right correctly at all, and I always made, healthy food.
Not just peanut butter and jelly
Yeah,
I can't remember.
I think she learned a lot about
nutrition.
the nutrition and stuff from the OSU bunch,
I'd say so.
because
But
I mean the proper nutrition and stuff for kids.
I've had a good life. Well, here I am, 100 years old.
She got me involved in. Of course, we got involved with the churches, you know, for a long time. Why we taught Sunday school classes together, and I didn't know nothing about kids. You know, I mean, I liked them.
I never spanked a kid in my life.
If his house broke, well, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, he said,
But
house broke.
she had to teach me what to do with children.
Takes a lot of patience.
Well, did you ever think you'd make it to 100?
I never did think about it. I mean, I don't think I ever thought in those terms, because if your mother died, was 51?
Yeah,
How old was your father?
I don't remember.
he was 70.
And any of your brothers or sisters make it to
No.
100?
No, they
In fact, all my sisters.
the oldest other person that was related was her grandmother was 94. And then she's had two sisters make it. One was just slightly over 90 and one was slightly under 90. It was in a few months.
Some good genetics.
But yeah, when she was 90, I decided right then that she was going to make it to 100, you know, because she was so much healthier than, you know, I'd had done a lot. I was involved in elderly people in the church. I ended up being the coordinator of all the homebound visitation and stuff, and so I was around a lot of
I never
100-year-old
would
and
work with the elderly.
different.
I never worked with the elderly. George works real good with them.
Well, what's your secret to longevity?
Well, the main thing I think, is to make life interesting and exciting, and feel like that, you know, and especially if you think you made something work when everybody else has tried it and it failed, you know, and you go at it a different way and you make it work, and think, hey, I'll try that. I don't think I'll try something again. I don't think you make much headway with, especially with, and I basically work with children. Threatening them, you know. I've heard mothers yell out, you know, if you just don't behave yourself, well, I'm just going to paddle your behind on your ass, you know, holler out about what they're going to do, and talk awful to the kids. And I think that is so terrible, because you could take that child and say, you know, when you did this or that, you made me unhappy. I was sad, because they hate to be sad, you know. Or you made Mama feel sad. If parents would just learn to make that child feel bad because they've done something, it's a lot better than slapping them or kicking them in the rear or something. But, you know, people don't think. And I think you just have to think about it. I don't know.
She made an impression on a lot of kids. We've had, just jobs of kids that's come back, after they's in their 20s or.
Yeah, we do have, that is so funny to have somebody, like big as you, say, Miss Carroll, especially just recently, there's been a lot for homecoming and stuff. Miss Carroll, do you remember me? I did this or this and that. And my gosh, here they are that tall, and you had them when they were this big,
She volunteered for seven years up at this school up here, and.
I did a lot of it just for my own proving to myself that children respond to proper words better than they do to a spanking. I don't think, I doubt seriously if you ever accomplish much of anything by spanking. I really do. I think you could have done much more by saying, well, even I have used, well, do you know that I felt sad when you did this and that, and I just make them think I felt sad because they had done something. And boy, that would just really straighten them up.
Did your dad spank?
Huh?
Did your father spank?
My mother would have murdered him if he had.
So it wasn't that. So.
My mother was
had a funny thing. We had
huh?
this little girl. We ended up keeping her most of the time for about 11 years, and she was had been adopted, and then their parents had divorced, and they'd remarried.
Can you imagine adopting a child and then getting a divorce?
She just, was one disappointment to her after another. And so she was, it was the meanest old gal, lived right down below us. And she would scream, and when it's lunchtime, she'd just call them all bad names and tell them to get their, what in there, and time to eat and this and that. And the dogs was afraid of her, and the kids was afraid of her, and everything was. And she was yelling at the dogs, and one of the dogs was named Sweetie. And Sweetie, get your in here, the girl throw it out, and this Anna, this little girl that we had, she said, "You need to learn to talk nice to the dogs."
She told that old lady that.
And Lovetta went in the house because she figured she was going to get cussed out from her, and
I figured I was
because it was every day you'd hear her scream bad words.
But Anna just,
And she
Anna just said that.
said, "If you just talk nice to those are really nice dogs," said, and if you'll just talk nice to her, said, it was just the way Lovetta had taught her,
Anna was a little adopted girl, and I took a lot of care of her. I mean, I had her with me a lot. But
You've impacted a lot of lives, I'd say.
oh, I think so. And
Positive.
I still don't, neglect it if there's something.
the biggest disappointment I had to really work to give something else for her to do to get her mind off of it was her ears went bad, and she found out, and I certainly didn't know it myself, but you just can't hardly work with kids if you've got a hearing problem,
That's probably
because they get mad if you say you didn't, ask them to repeat it. Well, I told you once,
Oh, yeah.
And
They'll turn around to you. Well, I told you.
And then
they don't know.
then
that
she
I
ended
was
up with
there.
macular degeneration, and so it just ruined her as far as being able to take care of kids, and that was her main thing in life. And so we had to find things to do.
Well, what's a typical day like for you today? What time do you get up, and what are some of the things you do during the day?
I don't know. We probably sleep a lot later than we usually do. I don't know, since I don't see the clock and stuff. I don't know what time.
She ends up right now. She's getting about 8 o'clock is probably a normal time. But
And then what do you do after you get up? Typically, what types of things do you do during the day?
Oh, I always, because this is me, I go out and feeling, you know, and I'll clean the table, and I'll clean everything over there. And George will say, well, because he does most all the cooking. And he'll say, well, you know, you better leave that alone and get yourself around, because you're going to be ready. You need to sit down and eat right away, you know, and stuff like that. But I don't see enough. See, I'm practically blind in this eye.
she does a lot of cooking, but it's teamwork. Since, you know, she still bakes a lot of cookies and stuff, but she just does
George, yeah.
whatever she can do. I let her do, and then
The way we do
I do the rest of it. Whatever, you know, let her pick the things that she can do, and then
the way we do the cookie thing, well, he'll
I learned to cook from self-defense.
Tell me.
My mother was a sorry cook, and all three of my sisters was sorry cook. One of them finally got to be a pretty decent cook later in life, but so I had to learn to cook to survive, and so
the way we do cookies, well, he'll just tell me a cup of this, a cup of that, and he'll set stuff out for me on top.
I read the recipe, and then she can't use the microwave or the oven with her eyesight, and so, you know, the different things I pretty well know what she can't do.
Have a few
So I
homemade cookies around, and
What kind of cookies?
the sugar cookies. That's the only one that I find that everybody will eat, just a plain sugar cookie.
well, right now we're doing, you know, sugar cookies, and then sugar jumbles, which is, it started out with M&Ms in it, but we also put some with almonds and some with pecans and different things. But
Well, the other story we need to have you tell us is about a wood stove, right?
Yeah, he told me a story about your wood stove, and when I was here the first time, about that wood stove you always wanted.
yeah, we didn't have any place for one, and so I found out she wanted a wood stove real bad, and so I decided to build in 3 rooms. The end of the house used to be there where that archway is.
Can you imagine?
And so I decided to build on the back, and then I thought, well, if I'm going to do that, I might as well make one big room and have for the animal heads. And so anyway, we built that wall and everything with all that brick and
Now you said,
everything,
think of something
just to put that wood
that
stove.
you always wanted but never did have. And I used to think that my grandmother, and I think I had an aunt or two, but they lived in the country. We lived in the oil field, but we would go to their house on weekends. I mean, we'd have to go from up in Osage County down to around the Stillwater and stuff. And I thought, I just wish that we didn't have to have those old stoves up, and I mean the heating system wasn't stoves up Stillwater. The house was just the system, you know. And I said, boy, I wish we lived where we could have a wood stove. So anyway, so one year, well, George said, I can't think of, what do you want for your birthday? I can't think of a thing to get you. And I said, well, he said, think of something you've always wanted but never had. And I thought of something. He said, no. I said, you've had that. And then, so I finally said, I know. I always loved to go to the country where they had a wood stove. I thought that was, growing up in the oil field, you know, well, I thought that was the greatest thing in the world. I just couldn't imagine. And my grandmother made, you know, all her bread and cookies, and when we would go spend the night, the Saturday night, and then Sunday, and then come home Sunday evening. Well, you know, grandmother would always bake something, and she'd always have me to help her. I mean, she'd let me help her because I was the only, I probably was 7, 8 years old, but I could help her do things, you know, like little things, and I thought that was really great. So anyway, George said, well, think of something, you know, you never had. And he said, well, no, think of something else, you know, you've had that. So I finally said, well, how about a wood stove? And I thought, well, you know, when would you ever use a wood stove in a house like this? And every day, because with the heating system. So first thing I knew, I had a wood stove out, and did you build a room on too?
I built 3 rooms back there.
Anyway, I got to thinking, I said, my gosh, George, I said, don't ever do that to me again. I said, look how much money you're spending to build on a room and a stove. He said, well, that's what you said you never had was a wood stove. And I did. I thought that wood stove, I thought that would be the most wonderful thing in the world. Because even when I was a kid, see, we didn't have a wood stove in the oil field. I just never had to live where we had a wood stove. So anyway, we have a wood stove. So,
And do you use it?
We used to use it a bunch, but
George does it Thanksgiving and
of course
Christmas.
we've had it 20 years, I guess. But the last time we changed the heat pump, why, it doesn't work quite as good. At that time when I first put it in there, why, I could just keep enough fire in the stove to keep the thing from kicking on that emergency heat. But it doesn't seem to work. It makes this part of the house hotter, I mean, than it does the rest of it, you know.
It has that special smell too, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I think that's what we like. Memories. Smell like Cracker Barrel. when it's wood stove's going.
But I just thought that was the greatest thing to be having a wood stove. So about Christmas and Thanksgiving, we'll probably have a wood fire around.
Well, what would you do for Christmas when you were growing up?
Well, we lived up in the oil field.
Would you have a tree?
Oh yeah.
And would you get presents?
Well, yes. The little ones always thought Santa Claus, but there were 6 kids in
It's
our
not
family.
gonna all go in there, dear.
I'm not gonna put them all in there, but I didn't want to put that one in there that I got on the table. I was going to save them for me. So, I know the table was clean.
I'll put it over here on the counter.
I knew the table was clean, but nobody else got it.
They're very good.
But I just, well, it's just a pain, you know, Actually, I take this and put in almonds and stuff sometime, but I don't like nuts. And the last ones I made, I had nuts in them, but these happen to be, if I'm not careful, I won't get them out of the freezer and we'll keep them too long. But I like them, just for sugar cookies.
The preacher that we used to have loved those, that was his favorite cookies, and he drank beer with it. So,
Well, I want to know, when history's written, what would you like it to say about you?
What?
When history is written, what would you like it to say about you? How do you want to be remembered?
I don't know. One thing, I really love life. I mean, instead of cursing the day because you feel, occasionally somebody will say, "Oh, I just feel like, something bad," or this or that, but I don't like negative thoughts, negative actions. I just hate negative things about life. Oh, I've had a bad day today. Well, probably you did something to make it bad, And I don't really. I don't know. I don't have any likes. I like. I'm a people person. I just don't see very much negative things. I mean, even if somebody does something different than you do, that doesn't mean it's wrong. And I just like for people to not be criticizing or bad-mouthing. I like to be happy and make the most of every day. I think just don't let the day just slip by, and don't, do something good for yourself or somebody else. I think even being good to yourself. God gives you that body. I mean, you didn't just come along and find it out on the highway or something. And I just feel like that we need to be thankful for life. I'm not a very deep thinker. I mean, I'm very realistic, I mean, I know that and I think that if there's anything that you can do for somebody and help them, that's okay, but you don't have to help somebody. You can just be kind to yourself, do something, be good to yourself. After all, where do you think you get this life, You can be thankful for it. It's not wrong to be thankful for your own life, because, if you believe in God, you didn't just drop out of the sky.
So you went to church quite a bit as a youngster? Or was that later?
We always went to church on Sunday.
Always. Even in the oil field?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but they didn't have it Tuesday week. Well, sometimes they had a Wednesday night, but not very often, because there's a lot of oil field people that worked at night shifts,
Yeah.
That wasn't hardly fair.
Did they ever have revivals in the oil field?
They have what?
Like a revival
Mhm.
in the oil fields?
Yeah, they'd bring some, like, years ago, I don't know how far back this was, but Amy McPherson, you know, you've heard, they had her up in Osage one time. I don't know how much they had to pay her, see, but they had her, I think at Scheidler, I don't think they had her with, I think Scheidler had her. I don't know, but
Would
there
would
wasn't any churches up in those, in the oil field for a long time.
would they have dances?
Huh?
Would they have dances?
I suppose I was too little, I don't know.
Didn't know.
That church probably didn't believe in dancing.
Hmm?
That church probably didn't believe in dancing.
Well, I said, some, I don't know. My mother, she went to dances all the time she grew up. She grew up in the country. But my father couldn't dance. He didn't know anything about it. My mother was a real good dancer.
Well, music. Well, did they have music in the home?
We had music every Saturday night at my grandmother's house. And, you know, I had an uncle, two uncles that played the violin, the fiddle as they call it. And here I am, a kid about like this, and I'm at this organ. I'm standing up and I'm paddling it, you know, and chording. I used to do the chords while they played the fiddle, as they called it, and the banjo, and somebody played a harp. Every Saturday night, my mother's family would, of course, my mother and us, we lived in Oilville, but everybody else was still country people. And every Saturday night, they would all get together. My grandmother, she was a little short lady and a great cook. She'd get in there on that old wood stove and start cooking, bake something or make a big pudding or, you know, make something on the dessert type. And then my uncles and some of the other people, I mean, we'd have this, my grandmother's and grandfather's house was a real big house. And boy, nobody would go to bed on Saturday night. Finally, about daylight, everybody would be going to sleep, you know, sitting in their rocker or chair or something. And the kids would all be on quilts on the floor. But they'd play, and some of the couples would dance, and the rest of them. But my job was, didn't have a piano, it was this organ, and you had to, you know, do the pedals, and they'd give me chords that I would just play all the time. My uncle was playing the fiddle, as they called it, and there would be the ones that danced, and the grandmother's house, it was real big. And yeah, that's the way every Saturday night. And then the ones that wanted, I don't know what they drank. I was just a little kid, but they had something they were drinking all the time, and they'd make usually some kind of fruit drink or something for the kids. I was the only one that's usually by midnight. I was the only kid up, but I got to stay up with them because I got to chord on that piano. I don't know what I was doing. I don't know it now, but you know they'd tell me what I had to do while they played the fiddle. The men were playing the fiddle and a banjo, fiddle and a banjo, and somebody played a harp. Those things that you do like that.
A juice heart?
Yeah, Jews are.
What was your mother's maiden name?
McIntyre.
Maiden, oh, yeah, you talking about the
Yeah,
last
the grandma.
name, yeah.
McIntyre?
No,
Mac-
I'm trying to think. McIntosh was
McIntosh?
my grandmother and grandfather was McIntosh.
Okay.
Uh,
So it's their house?
mhm.
McIntosh.
Well, we could, yeah, because they didn't have a car. They were older. They had horses, and but they didn't have a. Well, they had a pickup. I don't. Anyway, we always met at their house. Of course, we lived in the oil field, so we would have to go down there. It was quite a ways down there on weekends.
And you had the new car to go in.
Oh well, that was just, we always had new cars. My mother just lived to be 51.
So do you have anything on your bucket list? Anything on your bucket list? Something you want to do or someplace you want to go? Nope.
Oh, good.
You're content.
Yeah, I've traveled all I ever want to travel. And
Where's your most favorite place you've ever been?
I don't know, where do you think I like this? I'm really not a traveler.
Probably Colorado. You used to have a lot of fun in Colorado.
Yeah,
The snow, she liked the snow.
I love snow. In fact,
She-
I was known to go barefoot in the snow.
Yeah, I come in with my job. A lot of times I up all
He
night,
didn't know I liked it.
and I
This
come
was
in
his first marriage.
about daylight, and I look around. Of course, being a big game hunter, I always notice tracks, and I looked and there was this track that it looked like a bear track at first, you know, and then I got to look at the shape of it, and I could tell it was human track, but it's barefoot. What would a barefoot track be doing? Somebody roaming around the house barefooted, and she went out to get the paper barefooted.
I love to feel my feet in the snow.
I found out she was doing that about every morning. I just had never noticed it before.
You might have thought at first
I
it was
love it.
Sasquatch. Bigfoot
Yeah,
was
well, it wasn't Bigfoot, but
I love to feel.
she finally talked me
If
into
it snows, I'll be out there.
on our 30th anniversary. I think we was in Colorado, and she said, "Yeah, you coward," said, "Take your shoes off and come on out here." And I tell you, my feet just turned blue immediately. I mean,
I love to walk in
I
the
don't know how
snow.
she did it, but
And I do that here, and that was the first time I did it. I mean, first time anybody found the tracks, they couldn't believe it. It was me. They ever who was breaking the news to me, somebody had been barefoot out on the sidewalk. I said that. I said, "Oh, I know," and that wouldn't do that because it's cold. Well, I know that's the reason I saw. I guess I saw it. And I said in the snow. I said, "Well, I don't believe anybody do that," and I'd finally admit that I did it. I love to feel my feet in the snow.
Not for very long, I hope.
she's quite a while. She's up there in Colorado. She'd say, 15, 20 minutes out.
Wow.
But
Well,
she was handled disappointment real good. I mean, just like this deal with her eyesight and her ears and everything. It didn't take her very long to pick up something new to interest her and stuff. That she just bounced right back. I mean, it took disappointment.
Kind of know the lay of the land of the house. You can feel your way through the house with your poor vision.
Yeah,
You know where everything
I
is?
got rid of all the carpet and stuff and tried to get everything the same level, except that she doesn't go downstairs without me being with her, but everything else is pretty well the same level,
We have a downstairs.
and except that one drop off out there is just short, but I fixed it so you could see everything real good.
You just learn to roll with the punches.
Hmm?
You learn to roll with the punches.
I guess.
She's been very courageous.
Sounds like and independent in a way.
Yeah. She's followed me up to 12, 13,000 foot and stuff. I don't know how, you know, I wasn't very wise some of the places that I led her, you know, but I enjoyed her being there. And we'd, at one time she
Well, see, my uncles, there wasn't any boys, and they treated me, all of them did. They'd take me hunting with them, I could go, you know, they just would take me any place. And I never did have kids to play with. I had uncles and, you know, the older people. And I was, my uncles, since nobody had boys, and they just really, they made me really tough. I don't know.
Maybe that's your secret to being 100.
Well, you know, I have two brothers that died, and how many sisters?
3.
Yeah, but I know my brother died just was because he had such a temper. Oh, he had an ungodly temper. I mean, you know, out of the clear blue, he could just throw the fit that would just upset the whole evening. And my mother, she never spanked a kid. And she never would say anything to him. She felt sorry for him. She thought he couldn't help it. You know, she really thought he had something wrong with him that made him act like that. But that was just her way of not, because she didn't spank kids. And I was oldest of 6. And she just never did spank a kid. But she kind of humored the boys, and I thought both of my brothers were kind of not like they should be. But my mother, that's just the way she was. She really liked boys. I swore that she liked boys better than she did girls, but that I don't think so. I think it was just my brother had a terrible temper, and he was just really bad. I mean, just anything would upset him, you know, and he'd act bad. Didn't you think he did?
Oh yeah, that one. Well, both of them really, but one of them was a lot worse than others. I mean,
You were just the opposite.
Oh yeah, I never thought about it. I don't know.
Well, I think we'll round this up and say thank you for sharing your stories with us today. And your sugar cookies.
Well, yeah. Nice to have you.
Nice to be had.